This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, and joining me today, we have a special guest. It's Zac NBA. We had him on the pod last year. He's been doing NBA content on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, pretty much anywhere you can find NBA content, you'll find him. So, Zac, thanks for being here. I'm very excited to have you back and talk some Cavs basketball again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. So, the plan for today is we're 11 games into the season. Maybe we can just pretend last game against Miami doesn't exist, so it's like a nice round number at 10. I kind of want to burn that one from my memory anyways. But unfortunately,
I debated
we're looking
whether
at it
or not
all.
to. Yeah, I debated whether or not to include it in any of the prep work for the show. I was like, could we just maybe not at all?
I wouldn't complain, but unfortunately, cleaning the glass, all the stats that I pulled, they do include the Miami game, which actually probably, I think, helped the Cavs in terms of their offensive rating. Probably didn't help their defensive rating, but regardless, we are looking at all 11 games. I know it's not a perfect even number at 10, but it is what it is. We're going to do a quick recap on just a few different players, some of the biggest lessons that I feel like we learned through about the first 3 weeks of the NBA season, I think we are. And so I want to go ahead and just jump right into this with maybe the most important thing that we've all been watching to start the season, other than, you want to keep everyone healthy. We'll talk about Darius Garland later and kind of how the Miami game muddied that one up a little bit for us. But it comes down to Evan Mobley, right? This is what we're all watching for. Evan Mobley's growth offensively. Every Cavs podcast has talked about this for years. The Cavs themselves have made him a clear focal point. He seems to be the key to this team's ultimate success. So his usage to start the year, it's at a career high. The efficiency way down. It's actually moved up a little bit over the last 6 games. It's no longer at a career low, but it's still not where you want it to be. So it's been a mixed bag for Mobley. And Zac, what have you thought of Mobley's offensive role this season?
I mean, it's experimental, obviously. We've seen iterations of it. I think it's moving somewhat in the right direction. I did not like the way that it was starting out in the first 5 game sample size. I was not a fan. I'm not. I know that the thought is that you're developing him as like an offensive hub, right? But in my mind, there's other ways to do that than just throwing him the ball at the 3-point line and saying, go cook. Like there's ways that you can be more intentional about it. But at least the high level metrics or whatever are suggesting that at least to a certain extent it's working. He's getting up a couple more shots a game. He's getting to the line a little bit more. His assists are up. His turnovers are up a little bit. And I actually look at that as a positive because they're only up from 2 to 2.5 this year compared to last year. And to me, that means it is more creation opportunity, and he's not just throwing the ball to the 6th row. So I'll take that combination in general. So he's making more plays. He's just, I feel like they need to continually find more balance for him, because when they were first doing this, I think his shot diet just kind of broke in my opinion, in the way that you didn't want. You want him extending his range beyond the 3-point line. He's doing that. He's getting up more threes than he ever has before. He was creating from the perimeter, but the thing that was going away when I was digging into his shot distribution that had me troubled, I guess, at that first 5 game mark, was that he was getting over 40% of his shots from behind the 3-point line, and he was only getting 17% of his shots at the rim. And it was all mid-range that was growing. And so what I was hoping to see more out of him was to extend the mid-range out beyond the 3-point line and keep the finishing, and that just wasn't happening. But that started to come back to where it at least is improving, that like within 3 feet range is up to 28% of his shots, which is obviously much better than 17. But even when you look at like his career, between 20 and 25% of his shots have been dunks historically. And this year, the first 5 games, it was 5%. Before last night, it was 10. And after last night, it was 13. So like it's moving in the right direction. And I give like playing with Darius Garland a lot of credit for that too. But it just, so I think long-winded way of saying I think it's getting closer to the balance that you probably want to see, but it started off kind of janky.
Yeah, it's the balance. I think you nailed it perfectly, right? It's like everyone wants to see the volume go up, but I almost think at the start in the first couple games, it kind of felt like junk volume. It's like these aren't the calories that I wanted, right? Like this isn't the shot diet that I wanted from Evan Mobley. And you mentioned some of it. I pulled these numbers too. So right now, less than 40% of Mobley's shots are coming at the rim this season. That's a career low. It's starting to go up, but it's still at a career low. 28% of his attempts are from the three-point line. That's a career high. And almost all of those threes are coming from the wing or above the break. Only 2% of his three-point attempts are from the corner. So we're really seeing him just bring it up the floor and let it fly or shoot from above the break. And the reason why this is important is because, as you were saying, the Cavs are starting to adjust his shot diet in real time, right? Through the first 5 games, his splits were close to 50-50. Like half of his field goal attempts were coming from the three-point line, and that is just not the balance that you want for a player like Evan Mobley. If we're going to feed him the ball more often, you have to be intentional with it. And now I think, sorry if you can hear Apollo, he's making noises down there, but the Cavs now are starting to get this back closer to where I think his shot diet should be. If you look at his last 6 games, Mobley's averaging 21 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, about a block and a steal a game. He's shooting 52% from the field and 40% from 3 in those games. If you just told me those numbers without any of the tape, I would be pretty happy. That's an awesome stat line for Mobley to have. It's just the process itself has been a work in progress that I would still like to see be improved upon. And I like that you mentioned, like giving Mobley more usage. It doesn't have to be just asking him to create from the perimeter. I don't think this is a take that I've had a few times recently here, but like, I don't think Mobley needs to be the 1A offensively for Cleveland. I don't think he needs to lead the team in scoring. You have Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's great at doing that. I think Mobley's probably the 1B, and that means that's completely okay because he's an elite play finisher. He's really good at catching on the short roll, going towards the rim and creating from there. And so it's like you don't need him to be the entire offense at kind of how they were doing at the start of the season, where it's like everything goes through Mobley, just give him the ball at the top of the key and he's creating everything. You can play through him more often, but he doesn't have to be the entire offense. And I think they're starting to lean back into that. They're leaning to what he's great at rather than just having him, kind of forcing him into being someone he's not. And that's the key to making this work, is finding Mobley's strengths and putting all of his volume into that, right? Spam pick and roll. Let him catch on the short roll and create from there. We don't need him kind of trying to create from a standstill as often. And I think we've seen them adjust that as the season has gone on.
Yeah, where I want to see him doing more of the like self-initiation type of creation is off of a rebound, just like grab and go stuff. It's more transition stuff. I don't personally want to see a whole lot in the half court where they just toss him the ball and say, all right, go ISO. Like to me, that's not the type of development that's going to be most beneficial to him in his career and also get you to your ultimate goal, which is to try to win a championship this year. Like that's not the replicable process that's going to be going towards that championship goal, right? Like you might get him to go off every once in a while. He might get a highlight, but like there's not going to be a scenario where you're in game 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals and your offensive strategy is going to be give Mobley the ball on the wing and everybody clear out. So I don't really need to see a whole lot of it in November either.
Yeah, and I think to kind of recap everything we're saying here and move on, I think the experimentation, it's good to get it out of the way now, right? Like I know it looked ugly at times. I know there's There's some bad growing pains that we've seen, but like it's good to get it out of the way in November and December, because then once you get to the playoffs, now we know what works and we know what doesn't. Because as I said, I don't think Mobley's ever going to be the 1A. Like, I just don't think that. Like, Donovan Mitchell's just such a great offensive player. He's probably not going to be surpassed by Evan Mobley. And that's okay, because I think he can be an awesome second option. And that's what he has to grow into and blossom into. And it's like, if you get a mismatch, then let's get Evan Mobley being aggressive going to work. But he doesn't need to create everything as often from a standstill. I think working to get create advantages for him should still be the goal, right? Like, Donovan Mitchell's the guy who you really don't even need to do much to create an advantage for him. He just does that on his own. Mobley might be someone you have to work a little extra to get going, and that's okay. So it's a work in progress. I want to go ahead and move over to Darius Garland now. This one, unfortunately, took a little bit of a hit, because now we have no idea what's going to happen with Darius after re-aggravating, re-injuring the toe. We don't know exactly what happened. Maybe he'll be back sooner than we think. Maybe this is going to be a long-term thing. I just want to say, we'll try not to speculate too much on that. Instead, we'll just focus on what we know for sure, which is that Darius Garland's really important to this team, right? The Cavs net rating is plus 11 when he's on the court. The offense looks better. I think even the defense looks better when he's out there. Everything just seems to make sense to me when Darius Garland's on the floor. And so, Zach, how important is DG to this team, and why is he so important?
I mean, I don't want to say he's everything to this team, because he's not everything to this team, but he's incredibly important because he makes everything else make sense. He's really your only true, like, creating facilitator that you have on this team outside of Lonzo Ball. And Lonzo Ball is still trying to figure it out. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a minute, but like, and this is actually, so for the contingency of the fan base that has been clamoring for, you have to split up these guards, you have to trade Darius Garland, start Donovan Mitchell at point, and like surround him with shooters, I would submit this tape as why that's problematic. Because Donovan Mitchell is incredible at a lot of things. Natural born facilitator is not on that list. And Darius Garland, it absolutely is. And I know that it's a like 2.5 game sample size. So when we talk about things like net rating and whatnot, it's small sample size to an incredible degree, but their offense is still 11 points better with Darius Garland than without him. And I think it illustrates that point. It's like the offense looks better. The other guys look better. They look more like they know what's going on. They actually move. The ball moves. Like, the way that you want the offense to run actually happens. And I think one of the biggest pieces of that you miss completely when he's out of the lineup is just how much he facilitates off of like downhill movement. Like, he drives 11 times a game, which is about the same as Donovan Mitchell. And then when you look at all the other guards on this team, it's a cliff. Nobody else does it more than 3. Like, so when you just take those 11 out, they're doing a lot of side to side, and on the perimeter, they're not ever actually putting any pressure on the rim outside of what Donovan Mitchell is doing from that guard position. And the difference between those two, like I mentioned, Darius Garland is a facilitator from that. He passes 55% of the time when he drives, and about a quarter of assists come off of those drives. Like, this offense is really, really strong in that drive, kick, and cut type of, motion environment. And juxtapose that to a guy like Lonzo Ball, he drives twice a game. So it's a completely different play style when you put in a guy. Like, you can put the two of them on a fairly equal, like, I guess, podium, if you will, in terms of just sheer passing ability, but they're doing it in completely different ways. And the way that Darius Garland is doing it is exactly how this offense was designed to work and function. So I think it's the reason that you see that like significant jump in offensive rating, just immediately putting him back into the lineup cold, isn't because he's like some superstar that's completely irreplaceable on the team, although he is an all-star point guard, but he's sort of that unique piece that also not only does what he does really well, he makes everybody else slot more naturally into what they do well as well. Donovan Mitchell gets to cook and go get buckets because that's what Donovan Mitchell does. And he doesn't have to worry about like, when do I need to take my foot off the gas? When do I need to make sure I get other people involved? When do I need to go get a bucket? Like, he doesn't have to do as much thinking in that regard when Darius Garland is out there with him. And then everybody else, like I said, slides into place.
Exactly. I mean, everything makes sense when Darius is out there, right? Like, he's their best advantage creator. He's not their best scorer. He's not their best player, but he is their best combination of scoring and playmaking, right? The offense, when he is on the court, moves in a way that it doesn't with Mitchell. And that's not taking anything away from Mitchell, right? Like you said, he's incredible. He's an all NBA level scorer. He can put the team on his back and carry you to wins that you otherwise should have had no chance. But Garland is the floor general that gets the entire team in a groove, and it makes it so that Mitchell doesn't have to carry the team as often. And that's why this duo is so impactful. That's why, the idea of splitting them up doesn't make sense, because they genuinely, at this point, they play off each other's strengths and weaknesses almost to perfection, right? I know maybe the first season they were together, it wasn't as good, but they've gotten to a point where it's like you kind of need Darius as much as you need Donovan, despite the fact that Donovan is certainly a tier above Darius, I would say, in terms of just like individual star power and talent. But you kind of need both of them out there for any of this to make sense, because Garland, what we're seeing, he is one of the only players on this team who can break the point of attack defense, send the other team into rotation, and then from there it's the drive and kick, the ball swing. Like, that's where you get these vintage Cavs plays from last year where the ball's flying all around. And when you don't have DG on the floor, it's really limited them there. And then even on defense, just to pivot to that for a second, like, listen, I know he's not a great defender, but I think he's more important than we think, because he is a smart defender. And he's played, multiple seasons in this system with this core. He knows where he needs to be. He knows, even if I'm going to get beat off the dribble, this is where I have to funnel my man so that the rest of the defense, your defensive integrity is still strong. I think the biggest issue that we've seen with this defense is that the point of attack gets shredded and guys are missing rotations. They're chasing the ball. They're falling behind. And Darius Garland, at the very least, even if he gets beat off the dribble, he knows where to rotate. He knows where to funnel his man. He's going to scramble and get to the next spot. And I just think we could see how much of a difference that made, even in the few games that he was able to play, right? And yes, it's a small sample size, but it's one of those things where it's so obvious, right? Like the eye test, the confirmation bias, it's just too strong. It's like Darius Garland is their best advantage creator, and when he's on the court, they're better. Who would have thought? I mean, it's just like it's so obvious. And when they don't have him, I am slightly disappointed that they look so bad without him on offense at times, because I think this team is too talented to look this poor on offense for stretches. But I mean, he really just is that important. He is their game manager. He is the quarterback here.
Yeah, I mean, granted, the duo presents some challenges, right? They're not without their warts by any stretch, but I think a lot of those challenges and limitations are less a Darius Garland problem than they are a Donovan Mitchell problem. And again, it's Donovan Mitchell's fantastic, but you're talking about that like top echelon of contenders in the NBA. It is a very difficult height to reach. And him being your 1A, your best player, and being a 6'1" 2 guard, like that brings more challenges with it than what Darius Garland brings in the role that he plays with this team. And so when you're missing Garland, it's incredibly noticeable, for the for the offense to make sense, because he's the only guy doing what he's doing. And he's not the reason that it's, tough to get over the hump for this group, but he is a piece of this group that is absolutely necessary for them to do it. And without it, you take that puzzle piece away, or that Jenga block away, and things start to topple over, for lack of a better analogy.
No, I think that's exactly correct. I mean, this Cavs team, because they don't have like just a clear cut top 5 player superstar who, with legit size, who can lead you to a title on his own, they have constructed this core 4, or, however you want to describe it. If you include DeAndre Hunter in there, whatever, like this has to be a team effort. And they have so many different pieces of the puzzle that are all really, really important. And it gets hard for them to compete or to look like a cohesive unit when you take one of those away, especially when it's Darius, who is like the most important to their offense, at least in terms of, as we've mentioned multiple times, getting the ball moving, getting other guys involved, getting Mobley involved, Jarrett Allen, right? Like we kind of said it during the Mobley segment, but part of the reason why his numbers got a little bit better in the 2.5 games that Garland played is because Darius Garland was out there with him, feeding him easy opportunities. And so it really is just kind of a tough situation that the Cavs are in terms of roster building, because you are a team that I believe can compete for a title, but you're not a traditional team that competes for a title in the sense that like you don't have an SGA, a Jokic, whoever, right? Like you have this group that has to come together and be greater than the sum of their parts, basically. And it's hard. It's hard to compete for a championship in the NBA. And it's definitely hard when you don't have your all-star point guard.
Who knew, right? Yeah. You got to get the alchemy just right. And they've done it. Think about how just dire this organization has looked without LeBron James over the past 2 decades. And to think that in just a handful of years, we have gone from that fun, spunky, like interesting play-in level Cavs team to this one where we're nitpicking over like the most minute detail because we're trying to get them that just 1% better that it takes to go from like a competitive playoff team to, no, we're actually going to hang a banner.
Yeah, it's like people will think that we're being too negative, we're just complaining about things, but it's not that. It is what you just said. It's you got to nitpick, you got to find those little areas where you're able to improve, because like, listen, people ask if the Cavs are going to make any big trades or anything. I really don't expect it. If they're going to get better right now, it has to be internal improvement. It has to be, number one, getting healthy, right? Like that's a given with any NBA team that you talk about. You got to assume or hope that they're healthy, but it's the little areas where they can get better. And the reason why we focus on them so much is because, like, yeah, man, the Cavs are really good. Like, we know they're really good. We see that they can obliterate teams. What's that extra 1% that's going to get them there? Darius Garland is more than 1%. I don't know what percentage he is, but like he's a huge piece of that puzzle, as we've been saying. And like, clearly they're not going to get there if he's not healthy. So hopefully we get a positive update soon. We might even get this while we're recording. Certainly before this gets uploaded, it could be out. So hopefully Darius Garland, positive update. That's what we're all hoping for. But let's go ahead and move into our final topic. And it's, a rapid fire on a few role players here who I think have stood out one way or the other. I want to start with Sam Merrill, just because I've been pushing the 6 man of the year agenda. I've been counting down the road to 300. We're currently at 269, by the way. Sam has been legitimately good. I'm not even doing a meme. I'm being serious. He's been very good and very dynamic for this team. Zach, how are you feeling about Sam Merrill?
I am very happy with Sam Merrill. I was on the side of not being super happy to see Ty Jerome go.
So was I.
And so there was obviously, now granted, if you ask me, my opinion, I wanted both of them to stay because both of them have very palatable contracts, and I am perfectly happy spending a billionaire's money that doesn't come out of my pocket. That is totally fine, because
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel the exact same way.
at this point, the penalties are the same aside from financial. And so I'm perfectly fine with whatever multiple of the $9 million contract it would have taken to keep both of them. But if you would have given me a choice between the two, I thought what Ty Jerome brought, and I think it goes back to that Darius Garland conversation, is Ty Jerome brought a lot of what they are missing with Darius Garland out right now. He was the one that was able to give that to them last year, and I think you're feeling it. Now, Sam is bringing them something else in a exponential way that he wasn't doing last year, right? Like he was their quote unquote best 3-point shooter last year that wasn't actually hitting his 3-point shots at his expected rate, which quite frankly, the sample size on what we should have been expecting wasn't the most reliable in the world to begin with. Like the movement shooting was obviously important, but it's a lot more important when they go in. And this year they are going in, and he's shooting a lot of them. Yeah, he's getting up more than 8 a game, and he's still at 48%, and that's after last night. So I had pulled this before last night, and he was the only guy left in the NBA that was taking more than 7 and still over 50%.
Wow.
Now,
jeez. Last night he messed it up, but he 16 threes last night.
Right. But I mean, it's not just, and here, this is the thing that he's developed in a way that I wasn't expecting him to. It's not just like catch and shoot threes. He's getting like 4.5-ish catch and shoot a game, which means he's taking 4 that aren't. And you wouldn't have expected that out of Sam Merrill, right? Like that's basically half of his threes are not of the catch and shoot variety, which is what you expect Sam Merrill to do. He's also taking about a free throw and a half, which sounds like absolutely nothing. But when you consider that's the most in his career by like triple, like it means he's doing more, right? Like he's getting to the line, and his 2.5 assists are the most of his career, up like 2/3 from last year. Like he's doing more than he's ever done before, and he's also hitting his threes at a stupid clip that he wasn't hitting them at before either. And so it's this perfect storm of just Sam Merrill goodness that it can't last, but I'm going to enjoy every damn second of it until it's over.
We're counting him down to 300. He's going to end the season with 300 threes. That aside, that meme aside, I was right there with you in the Ty Jerome camp, and I completely agree. Listen, they didn't have to choose. I understand. I think if I remember correctly, I think the price would have cost Dan Gilbert like $80 million or something. Yeah, that's a lot of money, but he's got a lot of money, and it's not my money, so I don't really care, right? Yeah. When you chose to, trade for Lonzo Ball and re-sign Sam Merrill and let Ty Jerome go, you did lose a lot of ball handling, right? Even if you go back to losing Karis LeVert as well, which I like the trade for DeAndre Hunter, but it's just all of a sudden you look at it, it's like, dang, no DG, no Ty Jerome, no Karis LeVert. Makes sense why the team has a hard time getting into the paint right now. Bringing this back to Sam, though, who I think kind of unfairly, from myself included, took a little bit of a criticism because of how annoyed we were with losing Ty Jerome. I think Sam kind of indirectly became the scapegoat there. It's obvious what he brings to the team and why it helps, right? Like he's one of the better motion shooters in the NBA, and he's really, really proving it to start this season. He's shooting lights out. We know that he's capable of being a great off-ball player, but now he's adding the extra layers to his game, and it's nothing like crazy. But again, we're talking about these 1% things that get you to the next level. It's pump fake, one dribble escape. It's taking a step back 3-pointer, putting the ball on the deck, attacking a closeout, and dishing it to a big man. Honestly, outside of Darius, Sam has probably been the best at getting the ball to Jarrett Allen this season. Like he's one of the only guys who's facilitating the pick and roll, hitting that pocket pass and getting the bigs involved. Not to like a super crazy extent, but he's doing it. And so I've talked a lot about Sam. Everyone knows I'm loving the way that he's playing. We're all happy with it. I say we move on to Jalen Tyson now, because this is another guy who entering the year, I was a little skeptical, just a little bit, because the preseason wasn't great, and I thought the jumper looked really bad in the preseason for some reason, and all of a sudden it's like completely turned around. He's a sophomore player. He's basically like a redshirt rookie. He barely played last season. This is his first set of actual games, but he's put together a really nice stretch here to start the year. And so, Zach, what are you seeing from Jalen Tyson?
I mean, Jalen Tyson, I want to start by saying you can't really ask more of what we're seeing from Jalen Tyson from a guy that 2 months ago, did we even think for sure that he had a spot in the rotation consistently if it wasn't for injuries? And yet right now, he's the plug and play replacement for whoever's out. And and that component, I think, is incredibly important, particularly with this team, because one of the things that they did over the offseason is get even more injury concerned.
Yeah.
Like, they already were injury concerned as a team whose biggest excuse for the postseason exits the past couple of years have been, well, we just weren't healthy. They went and got a lot of guys that fit really well on paper, but also miss a lot of time. And so if you can use a guy like Jalen Tyson as kind of this like jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife, plug him into kind of any spot, like that's a very, very useful player to put in the rotation. And as you mentioned earlier, he's a second year, like a sophomore player. And so you don't really know, you don't expect that guy, I guess, to be incredibly impactful, but they are at least a positive in his minutes. So you got him from Cleaning the Glass. I got him from NBA.com. So mine has garbage time in it, but he's still a +3 net rating. And so when you're asking a guy who, like I said, you've not even been sure he was going to be in the rotation, to jump into the starting lineup for Darius Garland, for DeAndre Hunter, basically, and we've seen him play like the 4 in small ball lineups if you want him to. Granted, I think they have better options for that now than they did when we saw it, but still, like, he has that capability. Him having that versatility and being relied upon, and he's not hurting you when he's on the floor doing it, like, that's a Band-Aid that every team can use and like can benefit from in a way that I didn't expect him to be able to do this year. And so I'm happy with it. I think he's got some things to clean up, but also I also don't mind some of the mistakes because he's hustling more than anybody else in a Cavs jersey, like, at all times, and I will take that. Give me that, dude.
You can make up for a lot when you play. I said this I did a video on him the other day, and it's basically like, when you have a guy who plays that hard and he's currently shooting above 40% from 3, I'll take that guy on my team. Everyone's going to love that guy who plays like a bull in a china shop, and he's also knocking down every catch and shoot 3. That's awesome. And it's like, it's a surprise for a guy this young to be kind of like the instant impact plug and play guy. You don't normally see that. I know Donovan Mitchell has said, like, this is, almost unheard of. I think he's maybe exaggerating a little bit, but like, you don't normally see a guy come into a team that's supposed to have championship aspirations and be this much of an impactful player. Now, I think it's important for everyone to kind of, pump the brakes, right? Because there is going to be a point at some point here soon, probably, where the 3-point shooting is going to cool down. And we're going to get to the point where maybe the hustle isn't as helpful, right? Like, even against Miami yesterday, committed a really bad foul at the end of the game that ultimately didn't cost them because Norman Powell missed the free throw. But Tyson, just being a little too physical at the wrong time, fouls someone off the ball, and Miami almost had a chance to put the game away. Now they ended up putting the game away in even worse fashion later, but the point is there's going to be mistakes here. There's going to be growing pains. But when that happens, we'll have to see how he responds, right? I don't think he's fully there in terms of being like the perfect role player, but he's showing all the right signs. And it's going to come down to replicating that for an entire season because, again, he's only a sophomore. He's going to have some moments. And I know we all get excited as fans, and I'm excited. I think he's playing great, but I don't want to move too fast. And then as soon as Tyson has like a bad stretch of games, we all kick him to the curb. We got to be patient, leave room for him to develop. But I will say I've been very happy with the start to the season so far. And the jump shot, I don't understand how it looked so off in the preseason, and now it just looks like legitimately good, but I'll take it.
Well, I mean, I think that's going to be one of those things that's just inconsistent for him for a while. Like, I don't expect him to shoot 40% from 3. I also don't expect him to shoot like 22. Like he's, I think he's going to normalize at some point. And as long as he at least makes enough that he has to be guarded, then that's a plus. And to your point earlier about like the bad foul he made, also at the other end, how many times did he get them a second chance getting after it, just going for loose balls or, offensive rebounds that otherwise, like, he's the only dude getting on the floor. And so I think you just have to roll with that, like, that learning and development, because that's going to benefit you more than it doesn't. But that's going to be on the coaching staff, right? To recognize when it's getting out of control and when to sit him down so that it can't hurt you. Like using him selectively. And so you don't want him to be in this like starting role that he's in long term at this point in time. I don't think that's the ideal outcome. Like right now he's top 6 on the team in minutes. We didn't think he was going to get coming, minutes.
Yeah. He's earned them, to be fair, but I did not see it coming.
Yeah, he hasn't given them a choice really but to play him. But at the same time, like we're going to have to ride the wave a little bit.
Yeah. Right now, everything's amazing. Everything's great on Tyson Island. There will be some storms eventually, though. So we just gotta ride through it. We gotta stick with our young guys, give them space to develop. That's something that I always feel like you just see it. It's not just Cavs fans, to be clear. It's across sports. Like the young guy, whoa, he's this surprising hidden gem, and then he has a couple bad games. Everyone's like, oh, he actually sucks. He was fake. It's like, well, let's give guys some time to work through some things. All right. Now, moving on to our last player here, I got to just say this at the start. I do not want to just sit up here and crush Lonzo Ball, because I'm going to complain about Lonzo Ball a little bit, but I don't want to just completely crush him, because the things that he brings to this team, a lot of it is intangible. A lot of it is stuff that is going to make sense in a playoff setting more than the regular season where he's not even playing back-to-backs, right? Like, this is a weird player to talk about. We got to hope that he's healthy in the playoffs, and we'll see if that defense and the high IQ stuff starts to be more tangible. But right now, as we sit 11 games into the season, I'm actually not even sure how many games he's played, but I've been underwhelmed by Lonzo. All right, okay, it's a very small sample size, but he's a -10 in net rating. The offense is 6 points worse per 100 possessions when he's out there. And more concerning to me, the defense is worse when he's out there too. Now, this is, defensive metrics can be noisy, individual stuff. It's small sample size again. Like, I wouldn't put too much into this, but the idea of Lonzo is that he's going to raise your floor defensively on the bench. And so far, it kind of seems like he's just bottoming out with the rest of the bench. Like, he's not doing enough to change that. And it's early. We'll see. He does a lot of helpful things when the Cavs are at full strength and he's in some better lineups. That'll certainly help him. Again, I'm not crushing the guy, but as of 11 games in, I've been a little bit underwhelmed on both ends of the floor, and I'm waiting for it to I'm waiting for the tide to turn there for Lonzo Ball. But what have you thought of Lonzo?
I'm with you. I'm very much withholding judgment on Lonzo, because I think, and defensively, I think you bring up some valid concern, but also to your point about getting him in better lineups, like this Cavs team, let's be honest, like they don't have a whole bunch of dudes that are just straight up good defenders, right? Like they've generally found ways to be effective over the long term as a defense, but even last year they were volatile as hell. They were it was top 3 in defensive rating, then they were bottom 5, and then like top 6, and then literally like it was every month they were Jekyll and Hyde in terms of how they were going to perform defensively. And so I don't like him not having strong defensive numbers in the second unit, surrounded by a bunch of dudes that also aren't great defenders. Like I'm not going to freak out about that, because what you hope is that when it comes down to it in the playoffs, assuming he's healthy, where he's elevating the defense is when he's out there like with the other starters, and like he's out there with Mobley and Jarrett Allen and DeAndre Hunter, and there's just length and hell that you're putting the opposing team through for stretches of time, right? Like that's the hope. So I'm not gonna freak out yet, on that end of the floor. I'm also not going to freak out on offense yet because I think that Lonzo I think he's the type of guy who is what I would classify as like an anticipatory passer. Like he's a playmaker at heart, and he's the kind of guy that throws dudes open. And in order to throw somebody open, you have to have a pretty decent, like, preconceived notion of where they're going to be naturally. And I just don't it's clear to me that the chemistry's not there yet. Like he's throwing to spots where he thinks guys are going to go and like trying to lead them there and they're going the other way, or like it's a lob and they're like bringing it down cuz they're totally not ready for a lob. And it's those moments where it's like they're not on the same page yet. It hasn't clicked yet. And he's the kind of guy that things need to click for him to really look like the difference maker that he is. But I do think they need to figure out ways to get him going towards the basket in some way, more than what they are. And like, I think in the short term, maybe it's just making sure he's always out there with like a Donovan Mitchell who can, put some pressure on the rim and get to the basket so that he isn't the only one that has to. But like, if he's out there by himself, like they gotta get him to drive a little bit. I was looking, and so he actually gets an assist over 20% of the time that he drives to the rim. He just only drives less than twice a game.
So that doesn't happen very often, but he's good at it.
He is like
he's good at dishing out of the drive.
Right. It's that, but again, it's replicating that type of playmaking that Darius Garland brings when Darius Garland's not out there to make the things make sense and flow the way that they normally do. That's not happening. And he's doing his orchestrating all from the perimeter right now. And I think, and I don't know if it's concern for like to stay healthy and like to preserve and not, put unnecessary pressure on whatever joints are not typically stable for him, which I feel like is any below the waist. So if there's some of that in there, like, okay, I can at least understand it. But I think they can scheme it in ways where it doesn't have to be just him like trying to beat somebody off the dribble. He doesn't have to do 1,000 pick and rolls in a row. Like, but I think you can scheme something to where maybe he gets a back screen and catches the ball on the move already, and going towards the rim and then can play make from there. It's similar to, kind of what we were talking about earlier with Mobley. You don't have to just toss him the ball and say ISO from the wing. You can get it to him from an action that puts him in a position to then play make from there. It doesn't, like, everything doesn't have to start from like a standstill. And it's the same with Lonzo.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's something that I think has affected everyone on this team so far when we just talk about the way that the ball isn't moving around, is that so many guys are being asked to create from a standstill, and they really don't have many guys who are good at doing that. And, with Lonzo, as, we both said, I think as the season goes on, as he ramps up, as they get, it's the long-term vision with Lonzo. Yeah. You don't need him playing too crazy in November because this is purely a playoff-based move, the decision to trade for him, which is always funny to me because he's never even played in the playoffs, but everyone's just like, that guy's going to be good in the playoffs. And I agree, but it's just funny how that works. I'm going to complain just a little bit more, and then I'll end on a positive with Lonzo because I pulled these numbers. I might as well read them off, right? My concern with Lonzo offensively, you mentioned really good points on the defense, right? Like he's playing in some bad lineups. The team is there's plenty of bad defenders out there with him. When we get to the playoff setting, I still think that the important thing, I guess I should say, is I think he looks good in terms of his mobility. I'm not looking at a guy where I'm like, well, yeah, he's just cooked. He's washed up. Like, no, I think he's moving his feet well. So that's good. To get these bad numbers out of the way. Offensively, my concern, and it ties back to losing Ty Jerome and the idea that like you could have had both just to have extra, versatility and offense and all that. Lonzo Ball this season to start off is in the 11th percentile in rim frequency. You mentioned he only drives twice a game. He's in the 8th percentile in rim accuracy, so he's basically a non-factor scoring the ball. Now, he can create off the drive, which is great, but he's not able to do it very often. He's in the 100th percentile in three-point frequency. He's letting that thing fly, but he's in the 8th percentile for three-point accuracy, so it couldn't be more polar opposite. He's getting them up there, and almost none of them are going in. He is one of the least efficient players in basketball right now, and this was true last year. He was in the 36th percentile for effective field goal percentage last year. He's in the 3rd percentile right now. I do imagine that that's going to get a little bit better as the year goes on, and it's also important to say that he's not here to score.
No.
It's not his job. So it's not something to be too focused on, right? Like the whole pitch of Lonzo Ball is that he can impact the game even when he's not scoring. And I know I've mentioned a lot of he's negative in this, he's negative in that. I still think in multiple games so far, he's been a positive, regardless of what the numbers say. Even against Miami, I don't think he shot the ball. Well, actually, he shot 3 of 7, but I didn't feel like he was impacting the game with his scoring all that well. But man, I thought he made a difference with a couple huge offensive rebounds with some really smart passes. Like, he is a guy who can help. And so my question is, how much better does he look when he's playing next to, Darius Garland all the time, Donovan Mitchell, even Max Strus more often than Porter and Tyson, right? I think that'll make a huge difference. And, give him time to get acclimated to the team. The chemistry point that you made is great. Give him some more time to just, be healthy for once, hopefully, right? Like, knock on wood. Like, give him some time to get in. It's important to remember it's only November 11th, right? Like, this is a guy who, he might need a couple months of being healthy and getting into a groove with the new team before he starts asserting himself and making a big difference. Right now, in the small sample size that we have, I haven't been super impressed. I think I pointed out my areas of concern, but I still see the long-term vision with Lonzo, and I want to be very clear on that in case anyone thinks I'm just anti-Lonzo Ball. I'm still here. I'm still down with Lonzo. It's important, like we said, we got to point out those 1% areas where the team can get better.
Yeah, because otherwise we just come on here and we say, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
That's the pod.
Hey, man, last year, that's what we could have done. This time last year, the Cavs still hadn't lost a game.
It was so much fun. And they are a fun team to watch play bat. They're not as fun as they were last year. And I think that comes back to play style or whatever. But, it's like you said, it's November 11th, 11/11, make a wish. Darius Garland come back soon?
Yes, please. We need you, Darius. But yeah, we all knew that they weren't going to start 15-0 again. I think given all of the context with the injuries, with the new players, with trying new things with Mobley, 7-4, it could be a little bit better, but those 7 wins, most of them were pretty encouraging. There's a couple ugly wins, but I think we've seen a mixed bag, and I think that's perfectly okay. Because the Cavs, they're going to go through a little bit of adversity this season. The most important thing, as we all know, is what happens in April, May, and hopefully June. So we're definitely going to have you back on the pod as the season goes on. This was a really fun episode, Zach. Thanks for coming on. Let the people know where they can follow you.
Yeah, so it's Zac NBA. There's either a dash, an underscore, or a dot, depending on what platform you're on. It's a dash on YouTube and everywhere else I can't even remember, but I made a banner that goes on those things so that people can see which is which. But if you search Zac ZAC with NBA somewhere in there, you're gonna find my stuff.
Hell yeah, you'll find it. I'll put the link tree in the description that has all of Zach's links. So guys, make sure you check him out and follow him. Again, like I said, you'll probably see him back sometime soon because I think this was a great episode. We got nerdy with it. We got into the percentiles. I think we did a really good job. So thank you again for coming on. Thank you to everyone for watching or listening. Make sure you subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. We really, really appreciate it. And as always, go Cavs.